Hi, this is Vicki Gervicus of the Greater Gainesville Chamber, and I'm pleased today to welcome Sarah Rockwell,
Hi,
one of our
Vicki.
incumbents who is rerunning for office for the Alachua County School Board, and she will be representing District 3. Hi, Sarah. Good to see you again.
It's great to see you too, Vicki. How are you?
Good, good. So if you want to give a little introduction, I think a lot of people know you, but for the people that don't, give us a little introduction, and then we'll jump right into our 5 questions.
Sounds great. Good morning. My name is Sarah Rockwell. I am running for re-election to Alachua County School Board District 3. I have over 20 years of experience in education. I have a doctorate degree in special education. I've worked as a teacher and substitute teacher in Miami-Dade, Marion, and Levy counties. I've also helped prepare pre-service teachers and worked as an academic advisor for pre-service teachers at Santa Fe College and the University of Florida. And I've currently been on the school board for the last 3 years, 3.5 years. I also have 2 children with disabilities. My daughter is going into 7th grade at Lincoln Middle School, and my son is starting full-time dual enrollment at Santa Fe College. So I'm currently the only board member with children in school. So that gives me a unique perspective because I've been a teacher, a parent, and now a board member. So I have the perspective from both inside and outside the district. I know what it's like to sit in a contentious IEP meeting. I know what it's like when Skyward is behaving buggily and it's hard to get on and do what you need to do for your kids. So I have that perspective, and I'm very happy to be here to answer all of Vicki's questions.
Terrific. All right. Well, I will say that none of the candidates got the questions ahead of time, but we're gonna roll right into one for Sarah. And you touched on this already, but you can talk a little bit more about it if you'd like. Which is, what particular skills and experiences do you bring to this role?
So again, I have been working in education for over 20 years. I have a bachelor's degree in early childhood special education, a master's in reading disabilities, and my PhD research focused on math instruction for autistic children. So I have a wide range of education experience. I've also taught, again, in substitute teaching or full-time teaching in 3 school districts in Florida, and in self-contained special education in all 3 of those districts. So, I understand behavioral challenges, I understand academic challenges, I understand having children at different levels in the same classroom, because at one point I had 1st through 5th grade all in one classroom. I also worked for the UFMDTP program, which is a program that does evaluations and consulting through the Department of Education through a grant, and it serves 13 counties in North Central Florida. So I have experience with how the special education programs work in 13 different counties in our area, attending IEP meetings, evaluating students, consulting with teachers. I've supervised interns and taught classes at the University of Florida for pre-service teachers, and I've been an academic advisor at Santa Fe College. So I bring all of that experience. And even, I think, more importantly than my teaching experience is I have 2 children with disabilities myself. My daughter, again, is starting 7th grade at Lincoln in August, and my son is starting dual enrollment at Santa Fe College full-time. And so I know what it's like to sit in an IEP meeting, in a 504 plan meeting, to have to advocate for your children to get what they need, to have things not always be easy. So I have that perspective as well of what it's like to be a parent with children in school.
Very good. What would be your top priorities and projects if you are reelected?
So my number one priority is academic achievement. That is our number one job as a school district, is to make sure that our children receive a high quality education. And we have done a lot of work on that. Since I've been on the school board, we've reduced our number of failing schools from 7 to 4. We want to get that number to 0, but I'm happy with the reduction. We've increased our number of A and B schools from 24 to 30, which is phenomenal. In the last 4 years, we've narrowed our literacy gap between our Black students and our white students by 5 percentage points. And just in the last year was 4 of those points. And also in the last year, we increased the percentage of Black students reading at or above grade level by 6 points. So we're starting to see some really good progress. And the biggest thing, I've heard a lot of people talk about the Mississippi miracle, and it's not a miracle. It was the result of spending over a decade consistently implementing a science of reading phonics-based approach in early childhood with reading specialists to make sure that teachers get continuous professional development and support. And that is what we have started doing. We've been implementing UFly for 6 years now. Well, we're going into year 6, but we were not doing it with consistency across all classrooms and all schools until this last year when we brought back reading specialists. In the past year, we had one for every other school. Next year, we're going to have one for every elementary school, so they won't have to share. And I'm excited to see that continued progress. We're also adding in math specialists every other school, which we haven't had. So I'm looking forward to seeing our math growth start to line up with our growth in reading. But the biggest thing is we have to stick with the plan, because one of the issues in education with seeing stagnating academic achievement is jumping from one new thing to the next new thing to the next new thing, because we all want a quick fix, but there is no quick fix. We have to stick with the plan for the next decade and really see that science of reading approach and the extra support for teachers pay off. My next two priorities kind of interact with each other. It's having fiscal responsibility and strategic operations. And so we are facing increasingly tight budgets in education. We see decreased enrollment because of school choice, but we also see a per student funding that isn't increasing to keep up with inflation. We rank at near the very bottom in the United States for per student funding and for teacher salaries. So, we're trying to do more with less money. And in order to do that, we have to be really strategic, especially with our operations. So some of the things that are being put into place now and next year that we haven't had in the past are things like standard operating procedures at every department. Things like schedules for routine maintenance. Every other district I've worked in has had a rotating schedule for when schools get painted, when they get new flooring, when they get new roofs, new air conditionings, all those kinds of things that we know happen. And Alachua County hasn't had that on a schedule, so we've just been reacting to when things fail. And that's not the way to run an organization of this size. We're in the top 1% of school districts. So I think it's really important that we continue to be fiscally responsible and work strategically so that our money is going toward the programs that support our children and the faculty and staff who implement those programs.
Okay, very good. This is a good segue from your first point. What are your thoughts on the Alachua County Reads initiative?
So I think it's great to have a county-wide initiative. We're partnering with the City of Gainesville, the Children's Trust, the County Commission to make sure that we're all on board, making sure that all of our students can read. The Children's Trust is especially critical because they fund a lot of summer and after school programs. And some of those programs are starting to implement the same science of reading based approach UFly that the school district is implementing. And, when possible, we're signing data sharing agreements so that with parent permission, those out of school time programs can know where a student falls and implement those programs in sync with the district. But ultimately, we can talk about early childhood programs and out of school time programs, but ultimately the responsibility for making sure that our students learn to read lies with the school district. That's our primary job. And so, again, I think that continuing to implement UFly, that's a science of reading based approach. It's being used in every state and I believe a dozen countries around the world. So we're, continuing on that path with having additional support with our reading specialists, we're starting to see progress, and I think that's really going to accelerate.
Very good. Here's something that, of course, as you know, has engendered a lot of conversation around the community. And it is, what are your thoughts on the Alachua County Schools redistricting and school consolidation plans?
So I did vote for those plans, and it was the most gut-wrenching and heartbreaking decision I've had to make as a school board member. I cried the entire way home because I did one of my pre-internships at Stephen Foster. It was the best pre-internship. I loved my supervising teacher, Sherry James. I love that school. I have a very dear friend who was a teacher there. One of my bridesmaids has a child there. One of my daughter's best friends has 2 younger siblings there. It isn't distanced for me. It's very personal. And when the plan was first brought to me, it was shocking because the initial plan had us closing 5 schools. And ultimately, I had to really put my feelings aside and really consider what was best for our entire school district. It was, we're looking at a situation where under-enrolled schools can have schools of hope come in, which is when a charter school co-locates on a school campus. It puts a financial strain on the school district, but it also puts a huge strain on children to have 2 different bell schedules, 2 different sets of behavioral expectations happening in the same campus. It's really problematic. And so faced with that, and also faced with tightening operational budgets. So school districts have different budgets. We have grant budgets, we have an operation general fund, that's our operational budget, and then a capital fund, that's what we use for building, construction, those kinds of things. But our operational budget, for every school that we have open, that's about $1 million of operational budget every year. And so the 3 schools that are being closed or consolidated are, can I pause us for just 1 second?
So that is a perfect lead into question 4, which is, what are your thoughts on the Alachua County Schools redistricting and school consolidation plan?
So I voted in favor of that plan, and it was the most gut-wrenching and heartbreaking vote that I've ever made as a school board member. I spent many hours crying over what I was going to do, and many hours working with staff to try to revise the plan so that it was less disruptive and had less of an impact on our community. The original plan suggested closing 5 schools. And we went down to 3, but it was still a heartbreaking decision to have to make. Stephen Foster is close to my heart. I did my pre-internship there. Sherry James was my supervising teacher, and she was just phenomenal. One of my dear friends was the media specialist there. One of my bridesmaids has a child there. One of my daughter's best friends has 2 younger siblings there. Like, this was it was personal. My daughter's going to Lincoln, it's personal. But I had to try to take the emotion out of it and look at this as a school board member, what's going to be best for our district and the children in it. And ultimately, having under-enrolled schools and having charter schools co-locate on our campuses is not what's best for children. It would be incredibly disruptive to bell schedules, to behavior management systems, on a single campus. It would also financially strain the district. We also, for every school that's open, we spend about $1 million in recurring operating funds. Our district has different funds. We have grant funds, we have our general fund, which is our operating budget, and then we have capital funds, which is used for renovations, new construction, major repairs, those kinds of things. But when I talk about operating costs, I'm talking about property and casualty insurance, utilities, general staffing for a school. And those things come out of our general fund. That's the same money that we pay our teachers with, that we provide all of our programs for our students with. So, saving $3 million every year on those recurring funds, that's money that we, instead of having in partially filled buildings that could result in co-location, we can put it toward our students and our employees. The other thing is the 3 schools that are being closed and or consolidated, Stephen Foster, Williams, and Alachua Elementary, are 3 of our oldest facilities that would have been in need of major renovation or redevelopment to keep them in a state where they are a good place, a safe and healthy place for children to go to school. And we can redevelop, Mebane and Lincoln are also older facilities that desperately need redevelopment. So we can redevelop 2 facilities and build state-of-the-art K-8 centers, or we can try to redevelop 4 facilities, possibly make them smaller to avoid co-location, and spend a lot more money. The K-8 model also has huge benefits for children. You have one less transition for them. They get to be followed by the same school counselor, the same social worker, same administrators. It allows for continuity for ESC services, wraparound services, mental health services. And we've seen the impact of that because there are many K-8 schools in Florida. I think there's about 60 of them at this point, and not a single one of them is a failing school. I grew up in Miami, and I went back for a funeral, unfortunately, and many of the schools that I had substituted in that were elementary schools are now K-8 centers. So this is kind of a trend because there's evidence behind doing it, that it's good for kids, and it's also for our district. It's good for us financially, logistically, but most of all, it's good for kids. And so at the end of the day, I voted for a plan that made sure that the vast majority of our kids still have their neighborhood school, that they don't get bused far away. But the plan that still allowed us to be fiscally and strategically responsible and do what's right for our kids.
Okay, very good. And then the final question, again, as an incumbent, it's a little different for you because you certainly know what you're getting yourself into. But the question is, what prompted you to run for the seat again?
So one of the main reasons I decided to run for reelection, and to be honest, I wasn't sure that I would. It's a huge time commitment, especially evenings and weekends when I have children, because a lot of the work that I do during the workday can be done from home. It's a lot of answering emails, making phone calls, reading backup material, occasionally meeting with a group of constituents, but those weekends and nights are tough. But ultimately, what made me decide to run for reelection was feeling like in the last year, our district has finally gotten on what I feel like is a solid path forward. We are finally really addressing our achievement gap by hiring those reading and math specialists and making sure that our science of reading program, UFly, is actually being implemented correctly and completely in every school, in every K-2 classroom. We finally, after me advocating for it for almost 4 years, we finally have a district-wide multi-tiered system of support systems so that students who need additional help are getting identified at the same point, regardless of which school they go to. And nobody's falling through the cracks because their school is doing things differently. We're finally getting standard operating procedures. We're finally getting maintenance schedules. These are things that I've been trying to accomplish, and now they're finally starting to happen. And I want to be able to make sure that we stay on that path. It's not been easy, doing these kind of big systemic changes are scary for people. It's new, it's different. It takes effort to do something new and different. It can be a risk, investing all of our hope in UFly, that's taking a risk because what if it doesn't work? But it is working. We got our test scores in and we saw that 6 percentage point increase in Black students reading at or above grade level. We saw that 4-point decrease in our reading achievement gap. And so it's working. And I just want to be able to continue that good work.
Terrific. Okay, well, now I'm going to give you the floor to say anything else that you didn't get a chance to say, or just wrap us up and take us home. It's your choice.
Well, thank you so much, Vicki, and thank you to the Gainesville Chamber of Commerce for having me and for posting these videos. It's so helpful for voters to be able to make informed decisions. Your questions were great, and I think they really covered everything. Again, I'm Sarah Rockwell. I'm running for re-election to Alachua County School Board District 3. Make sure to vote on August 18th. Remember that it's not just your primary you're voting in. You are voting for your school board members, your city commissioners, and if you're in HD 21, you're voting for your state house member. So make sure to get out and vote. And again, thank you so much, Vicki and the Chamber of Commerce for having me.
Thanks, Sarah. And I will emphasize Sarah's point that as a community, we are in charge of the people that represent us. And the way that we make our voices heard is to get out and vote. And we encourage everyone to get it on your calendar, make your plan, however you like to vote, make sure you do it. Tuesday, August 18th. Thanks again so much, Sarah. We'll see you out in the community.
Thank you so much, Vicki.
Bye now.
Bye.